Hello and welcome to episode 3 of HDHD Founder Talking. I'm Michael Jakubiak, founder of NDXN, and I would like to welcome my today's guest, Stefan De Vresse. Stefan is a founder of Titanology, an organization which supports LGBTQ communities. And hello, Stefan, how are you?
Hey, Michael. I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries, please having you here. It's always to be surrounded by like-minded people.
Yes, absolutely. Michael, so what are we talking about today?
Before we start diving a bit more into this topic, I would like to know a bit more your story. So, if you can tell me a bit more about your organization and what prompts you to start the initiative.
That's a good question, Michael, and I love to answer this question because I hope it inspires more people from our community, the LGBTQ plus community, to also start on their journey. The whole reason that I started Titanology and to create a community for LGBTQ plus business owners and help them build a business is mainly because when I came out late, around 36, I always tried to find my place in the community, a sense of belonging. And I didn't really find a sense of belonging within the community until I figured out that I actually should connect with people that are building businesses, entrepreneurs. And that felt so right for me that I finally felt home in the community,
Mhm.
surrounded by like-minded people like you building a business, founders. And since that moment I figured also out that, well, I want to be around these people and I want to help them, and I want just to apply all my knowledge that I have gathered across 20 years and more of doing businesses, being a solopreneur and being a freelancer, and all of these several things that I have done in my life. And I wanted to bring all of that knowledge together and just share my knowledge with other people from our community to help them avoid the pitfalls, avoid the mistakes that I have made, so that people can accelerate their growth without going through all of the tribulations that I have been to, and essentially winning a lot of time, right? So instead of figuring it out by yourself, you just get to experience, or you get the knowledge from somebody that have gone through it themselves, and also the mistakes and what you need to do to avoid those mistakes. So that's in a nutshell why I really started technology.
Mhm.
And as a bigger goal, I just want to give back to the community. I want to help a lot of people build their businesses and build a life of freedom, right? Because that's what we all want. We want to have the freedom to do what we love to do. And I want to be there to help people get there. That's why I do what I do.
That's very inspiring, Stefan. I think worth to add to this is just to be yourself. I think both what we do, what you do, and what I do is to allowing people just to be yourself, and because yourself is enough.
Mhm.
So, what is exactly that you do to help LGBTQ communities, LGBTQ founders?
Well, it's several parts because a business, building a business, has a lot of moving parts, and we help people start their businesses. So we help them generating the right kind of messaging, the marketing, and the sales process around starting a business, and making sure you get your first couple of customers, and that you can start building on top of that. But we also help people that are transitioning from doing business for a couple of years already, and now it's time to scale, to grow bigger. But in many cases, the founders, the CEOs, have started their business because they were good at a skill, but now they're so much overwhelmed with the work that they don't see the time, or they don't have the energy to go beyond that. And that's where we come in to help them build the foundations, the systems, the processes to overcome that, to help the CEO step out of the business so he or she or they can actually um, think about strategy and the higher level stuff, and not so much in the business. So they can build a team that can run the business by itself. So those are the main two parts where we can help people. And in many cases, it's life-changing, because if you can help somebody build a business, they can live from that, and it's a full-time gig, and they can build their life of freedom around that. That's beautiful. And then for people that are scaling a business, making sure that they don't burn out, they don't go under the pressure and the stress and so on, and they can get back the freedom again to also do what they love to do. I mean, that's the biggest results that we have, and that's just the beauty of doing this. Yeah.
Interesting. And you know what sits on my head is we're talking about you doing this for the LGBTQ plus communities, and I literally have got in my head the stats where they said that the Belgium is number 2 country in terms of gay rights. So what's the actual challenge? Because for people who listening to this will think, well, stop, UK, Belgium, most of the Western European countries, they're reasonably all right with gay rights. So why we need to talk about it?
That's a good point, and I get that a lot, I must say, where a lot of people feel like it's not really needed to do something specifically for the LGBTQ plus community. But it's in this region, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, and the UK, I would say it's not so much about fighting against the system and making sure we get the rights to do what we want to do. In this region specifically, for me and for a lot of others, it's more about creating a community. It's about coming together as like-minded people and being able to openly talk about their personal lives and what is going on in the LGBTQ plus community alongside building a business. So the focus is definitely building a business, but I also want to talk to people about RuPaul, for example, or or the Pride and so on, or somebody's boyfriend, or somebody's ideas about the community and so on, without it having to feel awkward, right? And at the same time, there are specific things around being LGBTQ plus that nobody else will understand except somebody from the community. So if I'm helping a business owner and something comes up that I recognize because I am from the community, they are from the community, it's much easier to tap into that and to give some feedback, guidance on that. And that's why it's so important to have this, because otherwise you feel like you're not being understood. You feel like you have to almost go back into the closet, because otherwise it's going to be awkward and so on. So even though we are all accepted here in the region of Belgium and the Netherlands, the UK and so on, I still think that it is needed to have a community with like-minded people so we can freely talk about all the things that are happening in our lives and still enjoy also building our business. So, and yes, it's different if you go to Eastern Europe, then it's definitely more fighting against the system and making sure we get all the rights. But it doesn't have to exclude each other, right? Just the same way as there are women-only clubs, or there are clubs or business development programs for BIPOC people and so on. So that they all have a reason to exist because they bring together the same kind of people, right? And that's the idea. That's why it's so important.
And we haven't discussed this before, but why do you think there is a need for a community? And there is a need for a community, for creating communities like neurodivergent, focus on neurodivergence, focus on LGBT. Why do you think it is important to have these communities?
Well, I think in many cases, because we can talk about the details that nobody else will know. Because if you're talking about a neurodivergent community, for example, or a community for neurodivergent people, it's about being able to talk about things that happen in your life and that you want to ask things about, that you want to get some feedback from people that have gone through the same things as you, right? It's a sense of belonging. Just that, as I told you in the beginning, where I created technology because even in my own community, I didn't feel like a sense of belonging. That sense of belonging is so important in people's lives. If you see at there is something it's something the laws of I don't know. There's something like the different levels of the needs that people have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is definitely having that kind of sense of belonging, the sense of community. People want to belong to something because that is super important in your life. Otherwise, you're getting isolated. And in many cases, a lot of business owners, and that's, of course, if I look at my own business and my own community, a lot of business owners feel isolated because they cannot talk about what's happening in their business because other people that are not from the community, that are not building business, they do not understand. So if you talk to somebody about something and the other person does not understand what you're talking about, then it's like you're talking to a wall. And then at a certain point, you don't say anything anymore and you just retreat and you feel isolated, you feel lonely, even though you have a lot of people around you. And I think that's why these communities are so important. If they are LGBTQ plus communities, if they are neurodivergent communities, just having the feeling that you belong somewhere, that you don't need to hide, that you have people to talk to that understand what you're saying, that's massive. That is just massive for your mental health, for your well-being, for just life. Yeah, I cannot just. It's something that people need to realize more and more, that it's not only about the rights and it's not only about acceptance, and it's just having a sense of belonging, you know.
Mm. What you're saying and what you're referring to is actually referring to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and
Yes,
yes, and that's
there we
the one.
go.
And I
Yeah.
think whoever is listening to this, I think it's worth to look at this just to remind yourself, what's important and how your brain function and what
Mm.
needs to be done so it functions better. Um, I remember, so to change anything, someone needs to start this change, and it feels
Yeah.
like corporate business doing one thing. But I remember when we've been preparing for this, and we had a couple of different conversations. You mentioned to me that we need to create our own path. We need to carve this
Hmm.
own path, and we cannot rely on corporate business. And you're right, we cannot rely on corporate business, but we need corporate business on our side.
Hmm.
So, what would you be your advice to founders and minority communities in terms of carving their own path, what they can do?
That's a good question, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Carving your own path is important if you have the resilience, I would say. Because yeah, carving your own path as a business owner, for example, is not for everybody, to be honest. I mean,
I
we
agree.
have to be we have to be honest about how an entrepreneurial life is. It's not always roses and sunshine, and it's not always as fun as we hoped it would be, but it is creating something for ourselves, right? It is creating a space where we feel so good. And if we can share that space with other people, that's the magic. I told you this before as well, and especially in the LGBTQ plus community, there's a lot of things to say about how corporates are trying to build an inclusive workspace and so on, and they are creating ERGs to make sure that everybody feels safe and included, and again, the sense of belonging and so on, which is fine, it's perfect. But there's so much energy and attention to that that people really forget that the best workplaces that we can create for neurodivergent people or LGBTQ plus people is actually by creating it ourselves, by creating a business where we can hire people. And that's the most diverse and inclusive workplace that we can create, because we do it ourselves, because we know what is needed to make sure that everybody belongs and diverse and inclusive and so on. And yes, there's more details to this than just that idea, but there is not enough attention for this. There's not enough energy going towards people that are trying to build a business where other people from the same community can feel good at. So we shouldn't indeed not only rely on corporate business to spend a lot of time and energy and money to create these kind of safe workplaces. We just do it ourselves. Why not? Why not? We are more powerful than we think, Michael.
We are.
Everybody is more powerful than they think, right? But we need to get it through our heads that it's on us. If we are in a mindset, if we are strong and if we will feel strong to build something, if we are passionate about it, we should get every possibility, we should get every support, every type of support to be able to do it. That's also why I built technology, to be able to help other people to build these kind of workplaces that they feel good at. Because the least or the worst thing that can happen is that if somebody builds a business, if they're neurodivergent or LGBTQ plus, whatever, if they build something, so they can also include other people from the community in that workplace. So it's fun for everybody and everybody feels great. The worst thing that can happen is that that person that builds that business needs to go back to a 9 to 5 because they couldn't sustain because of several reasons, financially or not enough support or whatever it is. That's the worst thing that can happen. And I want to build something that can avoid these kind of circumstances for them. Because if we can all build these kind of workplaces, then corporate can do whatever, but we have our own workplaces. And that's the path that we can create for ourselves that is more impactful than waiting on corporate.
I think that's an important lesson in what you said, that we all are our own paths. So, and because
Yes.
of that, we should take initiative. If you feel
Mm-hmm.
that you've got enough charisma or enough interesting or important things to say, just go forward, get engaged.
Yeah.
So the corporate world or even any other business won't create a world of inclusion without you. Men's society creating birth laws for women. This doesn't make sense. Or a corporate world, thinking about inclusion from the gay perspective, and there is no one of the gay in the leadership.
Exactly.
Exactly the same thing for neurodivergent communities. People creating those great policies and ideas of the inclusive work for neurodivergent communities, but there is no one who is neurodivergent who is involved in this. And this is ridiculous. This
And
is
the
the
thing
something.
is, yeah, and you're right, Michael. And the thing is, they create, with all due respect, they create ERGs to feel good about themselves. So they created something in their own company that supports these ideas.
Mhm. When you say ERG, if you can explain for the listeners, what does it mean, ERG?
Yeah, sorry. So ERG means Employer Resource Group or Employee Resource Group. It's mainly, so it's like a community within the business that they create where they give some support to an internal community of people from LGBTQ plus community. So they create events and they create some programs and they allow people to create their own policies within corporate so they feel included, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is great. I mean, with all due respect, this is great and I support all of that. But as you said as well, like, wait a minute, but if there's nobody in leadership that is actually from the community, like, it's nice to have these kind of groups within your business that supports all of these ideas, but there's somehow I see there's a disconnect there, and maybe I don't know enough about it. I've never been in those kind of communities because I've always been a freelancer and I've been a business owner myself. But somehow it feels more right to me to build my own business. Like you, Michael, you're building your own business, and you will, for sure, if you hire people, you will hire people that are like-minded, and you will be able to relate better to people that are like-minded. So it creates by itself a better workplace for everybody. And again, that's why I feel there should be more energy going into that or that principle or that idea that let us create our own workplaces and not rely on the corporate business all the time.
Yeah, what it sounds of? It sounds of a bit like created unions for the communities, but really loads of people would be very angry when actually this would happen.
I mean, but yeah, but let's make people angry. Let's make people angry, because otherwise nothing changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And
You need to
honestly,
disrupt.
you need to disrupt. And if we can just get one person, two people, three people to be inspired by this and to say, yeah, exactly, like, what am I still doing here, and trying to create this kind of space within the corporate while I could build my own business and create my own workspace. Let's do that. And it sounds more simple than it is. I understand that. Like, no, I won't say that everybody should start a business. You have to be able to do it. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in corporate, in a specific toxic workplace, or just having an idea in their mind that they could potentially create a business, but they would never dare to do so because they think they will not get the support. A lot of people think they won't get the support for building a business, so they don't. And then they rely back to the corporate to sustain whatever it is that they want to get from that, like a safe workplace and so on. No, like, just create your own business. Come on, let's do this together.
Yeah, and and for people, again, for the maybe future founders listening to this, there's plenty of resources available as well. There's
Yeah,
plenty of things when sometimes people don't know where to look for help, and that's important as well. That's why we're here.
yeah, that's why you're making what you're making, and what I'm doing what I'm doing. And okay, people might think, yeah, but we have to pay for that. Yeah, of course you need to pay for that. Like, if you don't have to pay for it, where's the value? Like, we're not NGOs here, and even if we would be NGOs, like, that's not the point. It's not the point that you have to pay for it. The point is that you get the support, and then if you just give somebody like us some money, and you by effect can create a big business out of that, like, that's the value, right? Because we only can be successful if the other person is successful. It's not that we just want to get money and just get rich or whatever. That's not the point here, right? So yeah, think about that really. Honestly, this is so important for me to people to understand that it's much more than about the money. It's much more than just building a business. It's about taking your power and yeah, doing something with it, leaning into your power, as I call it. If you're from the LGBTQ plus community, I say lean into your queer power and do something with it. Because being queer, being part of the LGBTQ plus community, or even being part of the neurodivergent community, means you are super unique. It also means that you do things differently than other people. And if there's one thing that we always say, if you build a business, you have to be unique.
You need to
You're
think out
already
of the
unique.
box.
Yeah. And you already are unique. So what are you waiting for? Yeah.
Stefan, so how do you build an inclusive ecosystem in your place? What do you do to make Titanology a safe space for people to work, to live, to thrive?
By allowing everybody to have their input, by allowing everybody to help us grow. The way that I see it, if I look at my team, if I look at people that we're helping, I want to be there to help them. Even if it's my own team, I am there to help them grow, to help them be successful, whatever that means in their world, right? For me, servant leadership is a huge thing. It's what I'm a big fan of. It's also what I try to coach other business owners on. Being a servant leader means that you are there to help your team, your customers, right? So it's and just as simple as starting every meeting. You can ask my team. I start every meeting almost the same way, and I ask every meeting. The first thing that I ask, how can I help you? That's it. You start with that
Powerful.
because I want to help them, right? And that creates a culture within the team, within the company, where people feel empowered to take decisions, They feel empowered to create ideas, to create a better way to work, because honestly, I'm not there to do their job. They're doing their job. So the people that know best how to do their job are themselves. So who am I to constantly say, do this, do that, do this, do that, do that. This is the best idea. This is the best way to do it. I'm not doing it. So don't do that, right? So that's part of creating that kind of a place where people feel accepted, where they feel empowered, where they feel like, yeah, this is a place where I can actually create something from my own idea. And full disclosure here, within technology, we only work with freelancers, and they still do it like that. They still feel empowered to take their own decisions. So it's not even about being an employee, being on a payroll, being a freelancer. It's nothing about that. Because even the customers, even our own titans, as we call them, the people that we help, I'm there to help them. Like I could say, I mean, in some cases I say, do what I say. But in most cases, it's like, just look at what we have done with technology, try to replicate some of the things, but by all means, create your own processes. And I will guide you towards the right direction. I will tell you if you're going in the right direction, or maybe you should try changing something and so on. But at the same time, I cannot run their business, right? It's not my business. So I think that's a powerful thing to do. And if you want to create a safer space, if you want to create a place where everybody feels okay, no matter where you're coming from, how you are, who you are, and start with that. Start with servant leadership. If you're a business owner, if you're a founder, start with servant leadership. And if there's only thing you want to change right now, then start every meeting with, how can I help you?
That's very powerful, Stefan. And so by dealing with your clients, with LGBT founders and owners and freelancers, what do you identify as the challenges of these people are facing?
Well, in many cases, it all starts with mindset. It starts with having, I would say, the most of the challenges that business owners face, especially in the beginning when they start working with us, is where they feel like it's not going fast enough, or they fear that they can't do stuff, or they fear they are not worth it. They fear that the price they're charging for their offers is too high. People will never pay that because I'm not too good at it, because I'm just starting out, and so on. So it's a lot of mindset. Imposter syndrome is there. Fear of being rejected is there. Fear of feeling stupid is there. So there's a lot of mindset roadblocks, limiting beliefs, and so on that are coming up in the first couple of weeks when we start working together. And that's the first thing that you need to break through, because I can give you the best strategy and the best process to get clients, but if you believe that you're not worth it, if you don't have the confidence to say that your offer is 10,000 euros, if you don't have the confidence to do that, you will never sell it. So no matter what the strategy is, running paid ads or whatever. I had a customer today. She's great, right? And then asking like, yeah, should I create more content? What content should I create? I need to do more because I need more opportunities. But I said, wait a minute. You don't even have a process yet. You don't even feel confident enough yet to sell your offer. So yes, you can create a lot of content and you can get 10,000 people to say yes or to be interested to work with you. But if you're not confident to sell yourself, with all respect, or sell your offer, you will not sell anything. You can have 10,000 people waiting for you to sell them something. You will not be able to sell anything because you have these limiting beliefs. So the mindset is so powerful. Is one of the biggest roadblocks that a lot of people face, even the ones that are trying to scale. The people that are trying to scale their business, their mindset is, I cannot let go. I cannot give my team the power to run the business by itself because I'm the only one that can do this. If I'm not there, it will fail. These kind of things. And that's also mindset. So there
Yes,
again, we have to break through these kind of mindset roadblocks. And once we have done that, then the fun really starts, because then we are free, and we can really look at the strategy, the tactics, and the process and so on. And there's nothing stopping us. Because if you feel powerful, if you feel confident about your goals and where you want to get to, there's nothing going to stop you. There's only maybe the time and how long will it take to get there. But at the same time, you will keep going because you want to get there. So you will be successful no matter what. It doesn't matter how long it takes. But you have to be confident. You have to have that kind of mindset.
and you have to be open to get help as well,
Yes.
to help you overcome that. I think that's
Yeah.
additional thing. And there's a huge resemblance in what you said in terms of challenges founders face with LGBTQ founders face with neurodiversity communities. And example of it, you say like first the mindset. It is like why I want to disclose, so I'm neurodivergent. What's gonna be in for me if I will do this? Imposter syndrome. So you're doing things and sometimes you think that, am I actually doing what I'm saying I'm gonna do? So I see a lot of resemblance in neurodiversity communities and LGBTQ communities in terms of how we all function. And because of that, and I would like to find out a bit more as well about your journey coming out as a gay, because I know that it was quite late, and I could refer to this that I came out late, but as a HDHZ founder, I was out as a gay quite early. I think I was 21 when I came out as a gay, but as HDHZ, it was a process. So I would like to find out what was your journey to came out as gay.
It's a long journey for sure. It's a journey across more than a decade, where I was pretty sure that I was gay when I was 26. But due to several reasons, especially being part of a basketball community, a very straight community, a very homophobic at points community, where I felt like I could not show who I really was. So I had my own goals within that community. I wanted to become a professional basketball coach, and I always had the idea that if I would come out as gay, that would hurt my chances a lot, that I would never be able to do that. I mean, that's something that I told myself, right? I mean, it's not true. By all means, it's not true. But those are the things that we tell ourselves. Like, again, it's mindset, right? We make up stories in our own head about what could happen if we do this, and it becomes reality because we keep repeating these kind of same false stories in our heads. The same as coming out to my parents, for example. I always thought that I could not do this because I would hurt them, I would make it even worse for them, and so on and so on. We're with 4 children at home. So I got 1 brother and 2 more sisters. And I always thought, like, if I come out, then it would add even more pressure on my parents. Again, stories that are wrong, right? I should never have thought about that. But I did. And I did that for a decade. So I didn't came out for a decade, didn't do anything with it, right? Because I wanted to reach the top with basketball, and I thought that was the only way, and so on. So when I was 36, the basketball team that I was a part of said to me, like, we don't want you anymore. You don't need to come anymore. We're going to go with another coach, and it's done. The journey with you is done here. Mind you that I had been with that same club for almost 8-9 years. So most of the journey that I went through was with the same basketball club, the same community with people and so on. The moment that they said like, you don't have to come anymore, that's where I said like, wait a minute. So I was hiding myself all this time, and I got actually nothing to show for it, because nobody, after that point where I left the club, nobody actually came to say like, oh, how sad it is or whatever. They just went on with their lives, right? And that's okay. But this made me realize like what a fool I was for not being myself for more than a decade, because I thought this was the way to be. Because and at that time I said like, no way, this is crazy. I cannot live like this anymore, right? And from that point on, when I was 36, I explored my gayness. I went I went all out, and I went to, yeah, I did everything that I could do to see where I fit in. Because, like you said, Michael, you came out when you were 21. Well, just imagine that the time that you had to explore the full community all these years, I didn't do that. So I had a feeling that I had to catch up. So you can imagine that that's all, like in 1 year, I did like all the crazy stuff that you could do as a youngster almost. But I was 36. But okay, after a couple of years, I settled down a little bit, and then COVID happened. And it was another hit for myself, for many people, in a way that it made me realize like the last decade, so from 2010 until 2020, I was living a life that, yes, it was comfortable, but at the same time, it was not me. Even when I went, even when I was out, right? Even the last 4 years before COVID, that I was really out as gay, it was still not really me. And that I tell this story, and I think it's important as a context, because there are many people that are in this kind of situation where they try to hide something like being neurodivergent or having ADHD or whatever, because they think it will have an impact on not just their own life, but also on the lives of of people around them, or they think that it would have repercussions. If I tell this, then this will happen and I will never get whatever. And it's just not true. And now I know. it took me more than 13 years now to realize that if people would even react like that, or if there would be any repercussions for this, then I wouldn't even want it anymore. Right? I wouldn't even want to be a professional basketball coach. I wouldn't even want to work with people that are not supportive for me. But that's a journey that took me 13 years or even more, right? Even more than 13 years to go through. It's crazy, that amount of lost time. And do I regret it? Sometimes, but mostly it made who I am right now. So if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be building technology. I would not be talking to you, Michael. I would not be supporting you or our community or anybody else, because that's my story. That's my journey. And I went through it, and I came out of it as a better person, I would believe. And now it's my duty to tell the story and to inspire a lot of people to. I'm not saying that you have to throw over, or how do you say? I'm not saying that you have to just throw away everything that you've built up, or that you have to suddenly make huge decisions here. But what I would say is, I hope it's an inspiration to at least think about this and realize that you make up a lot of stories in your head that are not true, and that's just human nature.
Assumptions, right? Assumptions.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And with this, you think like it is a process to come out. And what did you find was the biggest blocker for you to out yourself?
The fear of being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of being rejected, that's the main thing. The fear of being seen as somebody that is not competent, being seen as somebody that is too special or weird or stuff like that, right? Because I'm an introvert by nature, so I don't like to be in the spotlights. So even when I go to a party, I try to just let everybody else have their spotlight, and I'm good. So if I would come out, that would mean that I'm in the spotlight and everybody would be looking at me, and look, there's the weird Stefan, he's gay. Look at how weird that is that he's gay. That's the kind of mindset. That's the kind of shit that is going on in your head, and that's the biggest blocker. I think that's for other people or more people that's the same, like having the fear of being rejected by your parents, by your friends, by your environment, whatever. And even if you're already out, I mean, look at the trans community as the same thing. They are already out as LGBTQ plus, but then if they make their transition, it's the same like tribulations they go through. So I think this kind of sense of fear of being rejected plays a big part. And if you just look at business, it's the same. Sales and so on is also fear of rejection. So that for me was, I think, the biggest part why it blocked me to come out. Yeah.
And was it different for you to come out to your family and friends and to work? What was the difference? Did you come out to all of them at the same time, or?
That's a funny thing, actually. I never really thought about that deeply, but now that you mention it, like, okay, coming out to my friends was the first thing that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out to my parents was the next thing. Was actually a funny story, but that might be for another time. But coming out to my parents was easier than I thought. And then coming out at work, well, I never had to do that, actually, because I've always been a solopreneur or a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that I was out, I was still doing freelancing. I never said anything about that, actually. So I never came out. I never did it because I didn't feel the need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But also maybe, again, the fear of being seen weird or whatever is still there. And I will tell you, when I created Technology, I started Technology as a business development program for everybody, not specifically for LGBTQ plus, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I only did that a few months after I started. And the time that I said to my potential customers and my customers at that time, like, from now on, I'm going to do this only for LGBTQ plus, that felt like a coming out, actually.
Mm-hmm.
As weird how that sounds, but that felt as a coming out. Because why? Because I had a fear that they would all reject me again, they would go away, and I would never have had any customers anymore. That nobody would want to work with me because I said that I only want to work with LGBTQ plus, which is, again, something as a story that you make up in your mind, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my experience with coming out as a business owner. And in many cases, like, if I'm helping people, I mean, not all businesses are serving only LGBTQ plus. That was just me at that time. So I'm not saying that you have to do this within your own business, but at the same time, do you really want to work with people that don't support LGBTQ plus? Or for neurodivergent people, it's the same, right? I mean, do you really want to work with somebody that doesn't want to work with you because of that fact? I don't think so.
No, it's a fair point. I think here it's worth to ask if you can tell me, do you remember what you feel when you came out? How did you feel after? From the business perspective and from the family and friends
From the
perspective.
from the business perspective, I felt relieved. I felt finally I can be myself and I can do it for our community. And I felt that sense of belonging that was so powerful at that time that I made the decision to quit freelancing altogether. I didn't want to do it anymore. I went all in into technology to be my full-time business. I didn't have any kind of runway at that time, maybe a little bit, but it was a big jump for me to do that. But I did it because of the fact that I changed my mind, and I really changed the fact that I want to do it for our community because it's my passion. It's my passion because of the fact that I lost 10 years of my life due to stupid reasons that I made up for myself. And being able to give back to the community that I belong to and showing everybody that I belong to the community, that I have a reason to be in the community, that I have a reason to be there, and that I can connect with like-minded people was so important for me that it felt like a huge relief to do this. And I never looked back since then. And it's been the best decision of my life. And I'm still here building technology, and it's going better than ever. So, yeah.
Definitely helps with this. I was asking about it because I think that I wanted to our audience to know how liberating it is when you out
Yes.
yourself, either as a gay or a neurodivergent person. And it is the process you need to process in your head, like you need to overcome the fear of other people. Same as neurodiversity, you just need to overcome the feel that you're being weird. You're not weird. You're not weird. You just process information in a different way. Does it make you weird? No, it doesn't. It's just the way you
Not
process
weird.
information.
It makes you unique, right? It makes you
Yeah.
unique.
Sometimes people say to not use the word superpowers because it may
Yeah.
touch someone. But you know what? It is a superpower. It's all about how you put it in your own head. We
Yeah.
try to look at the positive in all of this, and that's try to find the superpower in yourself. That
Yes.
in this liberation is a superpower itself.
Yes.
In the coming out is a liberation. I remember I told you that different and neurodiversity quizzes people can take. So I encourage, if you're listening to this, just Google ND quizzes and see if, do them for yourself. Some people say that everyone is a bit neurodiverse. And I think a very hurtful thing to say. And so you can understand what it actually means, you have to think about the word neurodiversity as an umbrella term for so many different traits, like the traits related to dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD, autism, Asperger, so on and so forth. There's plenty of traits in this big basket, and this big basket is called neurodiversity. It's not like that everyone is neurodivergent or a bit neurodiverse. You need to understand, to be considered as a neurodivergent, you need to pass the certain threshold. So amongst all of those things in this big basket called neurodiversity, you may have some, 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. But to be considered neurodivergent, you need to meet certain threshold of this trait. So I think that's important for our audience to know that, because plenty of people say, "Oh, everyone's a bit neurodiverse." It's not. They may have some traits, but as I said, to be considered neurodivergent, you need to meet certain thresholds of different traits altogether. So in total, it affects your life. We discovered during our previous conversation that your partner got plenty of traits, which indicates he's probably neurodivergent. So 50% of people don't know they're neurodivergent. Oh, what's his name? A guy from Big Bang Theory said, had a coitus with girls. And it's only because I probably would never do this. But societal pressure made what it made. But coming back to your partner, but now when do you think it will change a bit of a way how you interact and live with your partner, knowing that he possibly may be neurodivergent?
Yeah, I think it has an impact, 100%. Yeah, because the more that you know about yourself, the more that you know why you react on some things like you do, the more that you know why you are a certain way, right? Because if you don't know, and maybe my partner does something, and if I know that he's neurodivergent, whatever that means in his case, and I know that's part of his neurodiversity, then for me it's easier to cope with that, or it's easier, or it's better for me to understand why he reacts or says or does something, you know, because otherwise it might create frustration from my part because I do not know, I do not understand, and that creates friction in a relationship, which is not good. So I think it's important that he knows for a fact, but the same as coming out as being gay or not, for him it's not easy to take the steps to find out if he is or if he's not, because I guess also because the fear, like being treated differently or being seen as too different, you know. And the step towards actually discovering and making sure that he knows is, I think, also for many other people sometimes not easy to take these steps, because it means that you acknowledge that you're different. It means that you acknowledge that you're weird, right? Or that people would think you're weird while it's just being unique. But I think it has definitely a role in there, that it's not easy to take those steps. But it is important. It is important for me to know. It's important for him to know what is it exactly like, and how can we live with that? How do we make sure that there's nothing left unsaid that would create friction between us? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely that does give you the power, so you know what to improve or what aspects of life look at.
Yeah.
Because what I found it when I discover I'm ADHD, it's I found that the burden I was carrying all of my life, feeling that I feel weird compared
Mm,
to how the other my mates and colleagues respond to the surrounding world.
hmm.
When I found it about myself, it felt like the burden I was carrying on my shoulder turned into a superpower, because
Mm,
you suddenly realize what you need to do to unleash yourself, to unleash your own
mm,
potential. You just realize, you suddenly start understanding why did you perform better in a certain situation, and now it
yeah.
started all makes more sense. It's like, like a little puzzles. When you start discovering yourself more in a neurodiversity respect, then your life start making more sense when you look at your
Yeah.
life through neurodiversity lens. So that's my encouragement to anyone, to everyone actually. Just do some tests, do some quizzes, just for your own for your own sanity, for your own
Hmm.
benefit. It may help you. If you've got someone who you consider you maybe neurodivergent, suggest to him maybe that he may do this test. It doesn't cost you anything, just a couple of minutes, to fill a couple
Hmm.
of questions. It's not a diagnosis, but it gives you an indication. And that also you start think about your life in a slightly different way. And as I said, as you found it liberating coming out, I found liberating coming out. Coming out
Yeah.
as a neurodivergent was even more liberating as coming out as a gay. That was my view, because it's so many things started make sense. But when I think about when I came out as a gay, so many things started make sense as well. Why I was
Hmm.
always drawn to boys when I was a kid. I didn't ever understand it until I came out as a gay. Like, wow, that's why it was, because I was always gay
Yeah.
subconsciously, and this is not something I could change. That's how it was, and it's all start making sense. So that's why it's important to, if you consider or thinking or even have some doubts, it doesn't cost you anything, just a couple of minutes of your time to fill the quiz and see if it's worth to
Hmm.
pursue for the further diagnosis or not. It may help you, it may help people around you, it may help you work, it will help you thrive at work as well. So it's important to talk about it.
Absolutely.
We're coming to an end, Stefan.
Mhm.
It's lovely having you here. Any last word of advice to our listeners?
If there's anything from this episode that you can take away from that might inspire you is just think about the fact that you are more powerful than you think. You can do things that you would never have imagined if you just step into that power that you have and try to not make up too many stories in your head that are not true, because that's going to limit you with a lot of things that you do. That's what I would say as final advice. Yeah, because that has changed my life as well. So
The courage to be yourself. I think
yeah,
that's the good one.
yeah,
Have the courage to be yourself.
yeah.
Lovely having you here, Stefan. Thank you very much for this summary. And I wish for us to speak soon again. And hope you all
Absolutely.
listeners as well enjoy this podcast. And there was some points which you will find useful. I hope so. Any comments welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.